Welcome to Calm Buddha. Tonight we begin a journey together, a journey not across mountains or oceans, but into the stillness of the night and the restless landscapes of the mind. You may be lying in bed now or sitting quietly in a room dimly lit by a lamp. Outside, the world is quiet. Inside, however, thoughts move restlessly as if they cannot bear to be still. There is a certain hour when silence feels heavier than sound. The hum of the day has faded, yet in its absence the mind begins to speak more loudly. Worries slip in like visitors at the door. They come uninvited, a memory of something unfinished, a fear of what might come, a small regret that grows larger in the dark. Before long, it feels as if anxiety itself has taken a seat beside you. The Buddha began his teaching not in some distant realm, but in moments exactly like this, ordinary, fragile, deeply human. He understood that suffering is not rare, it is part of life. Anxiety, loneliness, uncertainty. These are not mistakes in the human design. They are woven into the very fabric of our being. And yet, though suffering is universal, it is not meaningless. Each tremor of unease carries within it the potential to awaken us. Each restless thought is a messenger pointing us toward something deeper. The Buddha taught that suffering, when understood, becomes the doorway to wisdom. Consider the silence of a temple courtyard under the moon. The stone floor still holds the warmth of the day. Lanterns flicker against the breeze. A single door stands in the far wall, plain wood, weathered by time. You hesitate to open it, fearing what might lie beyond. But when at last you step inside, you find not darkness, but stillness, a small room lit by a single candle, fragrant with the soft smoke of incense. Anxiety is like that door. From a distance, it seems to conceal danger. Up close, it may lead to understanding. Many of us were taught to treat anxiety as an enemy. We try to fight it, bury it under noise, chase it away with endless tasks. But what if it is not an enemy? What if it is a teacher appearing in an unexpected form, a teacher that shows us where we are grasping too tightly, where we are pushing too hard, where we have forgotten the gentle rhythm of impermanence? Imagine your hand closing tightly around a stone. The fist grows tense, the arm weary, the weight unbearable. Yet the suffering does not come from the stone, it comes from the grip. Now picture the same hand slowly opening, releasing its hold. The stone falls quietly away, and the hand rests light and free. Anxiety works in much the same way. It reveals the tension in our grasping, the weariness of our pushing. It shows us that freedom is not found by clinging harder, but by learning to let go. When you feel the restless tide of thoughts rising within you, remember that you are not alone. Others have sat awake in the small hours listening to the same tide. Across centuries and continents, monks in monasteries, mothers in quiet homes, travelers on distant roads, all have known this same unease. You are part of this wide human family. Your anxiety does not set you apart. It connects you to countless others. The Buddha's wisdom reminds us there is nothing wrong with the presence of anxiety. It is simply a signal, a reminder that the mind is searching for peace. And peace does not arrive through force nor through running away. It comes through turning gently toward what is here, seeing it clearly, and recognizing that even this moment of unease belongs to the vast flow of life. So as we begin this journey, let us shift the way we see. Anxiety is not proof of failure. It is not a punishment. It is not the measure of who you are. It is instead a quiet doorway, an invitation to step inside, to listen, to meet yourself with honesty and care. Tonight and in the nights that follow, we will walk through this doorway together. Each step will take us deeper into the teachings of the Buddha and deeper into the soft landscape of awareness that has always been waiting within you. In the still hours of the night, silence often grows louder than any sound. The ticking of a clock, the rustle of sheets, the faint hum of the air, they all seem sharper when the mind is restless. Yet what disturbs us most is not the sound around us, but the echoes within. Thoughts turn and turn, replaying the past, rehearsing the future, circling without rest. It is here, in these ordinary moments of unease, that the Buddha's teaching becomes alive. He taught that suffering is not an accident nor a sign of weakness. It is part of the human path, and because it is universal, it can also be a teacher. Anxiety, when seen with clear eyes, is not a curse. It is a doorway. Picture once more the temple courtyard beneath the moon. The air is cool, touched by the fragrance of night jasmine. Lanterns sway gently in the breeze, their light casting long shadows across the stones. At the far side stands a door, plain and unmarked. From a distance it appears heavy, even foreboding. But as you step closer, you notice it is slightly ajar, as if waiting for you. This is the door of anxiety. Many turn away from it, fearing what lies beyond. They pace the courtyard instead, circling endlessly in restlessness. But if you place your hand upon the wood and push, the door opens, quietly, revealing not a prison, but a room of stillness. Within, a single candle glows. The silence is gentle, not heavy. The space holds you like a soft embrace. The Buddha's insight was simple and profound. Suffering itself can be the path to peace. To deny or resist anxiety is to remain outside in the cold courtyard. To step through it is to discover what lies deeper. Each thought that troubles you is like a knock upon that door. Each worry is an invitation. This does not mean that anxiety is pleasant. It is not. But it can be meaningful. Think of a child crying in the night. The sound is sharp, piercing, difficult to ignore. Yet it is not cruelty. It is a call for care. Anxiety, too, is the mind calling out, saying, "Look here, pay attention, something within you needs kindness." In modern life, we often treat anxiety as something to suppress. We drown it in distraction, bury it beneath endless tasks, or numb it with noise. But in doing so, we remain outside the door, pacing, restless, never discovering the quiet room beyond. The practice the Buddha offered is different. It is the practice of turning toward the very thing we fear. When you notice the rising tide of unease, imagine yourself once again in that moonlit courtyard. Do not flee, do not fight. Simply step forward. Place your hand on the door of anxiety, open it gently. Inside is not danger but understanding. Inside is the space where you begin to see yourself more clearly. This is not a quick solution nor a magic cure. It is a way of walking, a way of being present even with what is difficult. And as you learn to see anxiety not as an enemy but as a doorway, you may begin to sense the first traces of peace returning, like the faint glow of dawn appearing at the edge of the night. If anxiety is a doorway, then what lies behind it? To answer this, the Buddha spoke of the roots of suffering. They are not mysterious, though they can feel hidden when we are lost in thought. He named them clearly: attachment and aversion. Attachment is the habit of clinging. We cling to comfort, to certainty, to people and routines that make us feel safe. We hold tightly to our health, our youth, our possessions, our roles. And because life is always changing, clinging creates fear. Whisper to the world, "Do not change, do not leave me." But the world cannot obey. Seasons turn. bodies age, circumstances shift. Anxiety rises when we try to hold still what must move. Aversion is the opposite movement, though born from the same misunderstanding. It is the habit of pushing away what we do not like. We resist discomfort, loss, pain, and uncertainty. We say, "This should not happen to me. This must not be part of my life." And yet pain too is woven into the human story. To deny it only deepens our unease. Anxiety grows when we spend our energy closing the door on what has already entered. Think of your own hands. Picture them clenched into fists, knuckles, tight fingers, aching from the effort of holding. The muscles grow sore, the grip exhausting. Now imagine slowly opening those hands. The fingers soften, the palms turn upward, the weight slips away. The difference between suffering and freedom often lies in this simple gesture, the shift from clinging or rejecting to letting be. The Buddha once compared this grasping to carrying a burning coal. As long as we hold it, our hand burns. Yet we often blame the fire, forgetting that it is our grip that causes the pain. In the same way, anxiety is not caused by life itself. It is caused by the way we hold life too tightly or push it away too forcefully. Consider a woman who fears the loss of her child. Each time the child leaves the house, her mind fills with worry, accidents, illness, dangers she cannot control. Her love is deep, but so is her fear. Her clinging to the idea of perfect safety creates constant anxiety. Or think of an old man who refuses to face the truth of aging. Each ache in his body, each new wrinkle, each forgotten word fills him with dread. He pushes away the natural rhythm of life, and in doing so, he multiplies his suffering. These examples are not meant to judge, but to show how natural these roots are. We all cling, we all resist. It is part of being human, but the Buddha's wisdom is that by recognizing these roots, we can begin to loosen them. Awareness is the first step. When we see clearly, we no longer live at the mercy of unconscious habits. Imagine once more that temple courtyard. This time, instead of the plain wooden door, you notice the roots of a great tree spreading across the stones, and thick-tangled, holding tightly to the earth. They remind you of your own habits of clinging and aversion, old, deep, not easily moved. And yet, over time, even the largest roots can be cut back. Even the heaviest habits can soften. Anxiety shows us where these roots live. Each worry points to something we are holding too tightly or pushing too strongly. Each restless night is an invitation to see what lies beneath. This is not easy work, but it is liberating. For when we loosen the grip, when we release the push, what remains is not emptiness, but space, for peace, for presence, for life as it truly is. The Buddha often reminded his followers of a truth so simple yet so difficult to live by. Everything changes. This truth is called impermanence. It is the rhythm of all existence. Seasons shift, rivers flow, stars appear and fade. Even the stones of the earth are worn by time. Nothing stands still, not even for a moment. Anxiety at its core is often a refusal to trust this rhythm. We long for what is pleasant to remain. We pray that what is painful will vanish quickly. But life has its own current, and it does not bend to our will. When we resist impermanence, our hearts grow weary. When we accept it, we find a quiet freedom. Imagine the cycle of the moon. One night it is full, bathing the world in silver light. Days later it wanes, a slender curve in the sky. Later still it disappears entirely, only to return again bright and whole. We do not rage at the moon for fading. We know it will return. The same is true of our joys and our sorrows. They wax and wane. They arise and pass away. Consider the story of Thomas, a man who walked each morning at sunrise. For years, this routine was his anchor. He greeted the same trees, the same winding path, the same rising sun. Then one winter, his legs grew weak. The path became too long, the mornings too cold. He could no longer walk as before. Anxiety grew in him, for he felt that he had lost himself. Who was he if not the man who walked each dawn? Thomas's suffering was not only from his aging body, it came from his attachment to the image of who he once was. He clung to a version of himself that life had already asked him to release. Only when he began to see that changes the nature of all things did he find peace again. He learned to sit by the window watching the sunrise instead of walking beneath it. And in that simple act, he discovered that beauty was still there, only in a new form. Impermanence can be frightening. It reminds us that nothing we love is guaranteed to last. But it is also a gift. Without change, a seed could never become a flower. Without change, a child could never grow. Without change, sorrow itself could never fade. The very impermanence we fear is the same force that carries us forward. Picture a river winding through a valley. The water you touch now is not the same water you touched a moment ago. It flows always, renewing itself. To resist the current is to tire yourself. To flow with it is to discover its song. Life is no different. Anxiety rises when we try to dam the river. Peace arrives when we learn to float upon it. In your own life, notice how often anxiety whispers, "What if this moment never changes?" Or "What if this never returns?" Both are cries against impermanence, yet the truth is that change is certain. And within that certainty lies relief. For whatever you feel now, whether joy or sorrow, calm or unease, it will shift. Nothing remains forever. The Buddha's wisdom is not to deny change, but to embrace it, to see each moment as part of a vast unfolding beyond our control, but filled with meaning. When you open to impermanence, you begin to live more gently. You hold what you love with tenderness, knowing it is precious because it will not last. You meet what is difficult with patience, knowing it too will pass. Thomas learned this truth by watching the sunrise from his chair instead of the path. You may learn it by watching the clouds drift, or the seasons turn, or the lines of your own face change in the mirror. In each of these, the teaching is the same: all things move, all things flow. And in that movement, life reveals its beauty. When we see clearly that change is the nature of all things, the next step is learning to let go. This is one of the hardest lessons the Buddha offered, and also one of the most liberating. Letting go does not mean we stop caring. It does not mean we stop loving. It means we release our grip so that life can move as it must. Think again of your hands. When they are clenched tightly, even around something beautiful, they grow tired, the muscles ache, the skin presses hard, and soon what you hold becomes a burden. But when the hands open, palms soft, fingers loose, they can hold gently. They can let go when it is time and still remain whole. Anxiety often comes from the fear of letting go. We tell ourselves, if I loosen my grip, I will lose everything. But the truth is that clinging cannot stop loss. It only makes loss more painful when it arrives. Letting go is not a rejection of what we love. It is an honoring of life's flow. It is saying, I cherish this while it is here, and I release it when it is time. Picture a tree in autumn. Its branches are heavy with golden leaves. The wind rises, and one by one the leaves fall. The tree does not cling to them, though they once gave it shade and beauty. It lets them drift gently to the ground, trusting that new leaves will come in spring. We too can learn to let go, like that tree, not in despair, but in trust. There was once a young woman who loved deeply, but her love was filled with fear. She worried constantly that the people she cared for would leave her. She held them tightly, always watching, always guarding. Yet her fear became a cage, and those she loved felt trapped. It was only when she learned to loosen her grip that her relationships found room to breathe. She discovered that love is not control. Love is freedom. In the same way, letting go of anxiety does not mean pushing it away. It means releasing the need to control it. Instead of saying, "This must not be here," we can say, "This, too, is part of the moment." When we soften in this way, anxiety loses its sharp edge. It becomes just another passing guest. Imagine standing by a river. In your hand, you hold a flower. The current flows swiftly, and you know the petals cannot last forever. And you have two choices. You can grip the flower so tightly that it wilts in your hand, or you can place it gently upon the water, watching as it drifts away, carried by the current. In that letting go, there is both sadness and beauty. And in that beauty, there is peace. The Buddha's teaching is not to turn away from what you love, but to meet it with open hands, to enjoy without clinging, to grieve without despair, to let life be what it is, and to trust the rhythm of change. Anxiety softens when we practice letting go lightly. We begin to see that we do not need to control each moment. We do not need to hold every thought, every feeling, every person as if they were slipping away. Instead, we can open our hands. We can trust that what belongs to us will remain, and what passes was never meant to be kept forever. Tonight, as you rest, notice what you are holding too tightly. Notice the weight it brings. And then, just for a moment, imagine loosening your grip. Feel the space that opens in your palms, the lightness in your heart. This is the beginning of freedom. Even as we practice letting go, the mind continues to generate thoughts. They rise like waves on the surface of the ocean, one after another, endless in their motion. Many of these thoughts are small and harmless. But when anxiety is present, they can feel sharp, pressing, urgent. They whisper stories that may not be true, yet we believe them as if they were carved in stone. The Buddha taught that thoughts are not solid. They are not who we are. They are events of the mind appearing and dissolving like clouds across the sky. Some are bright and soft, others heavy and dark. Yet none remain forever. Picture yourself lying on a grassy hillside. Above, the sky is wide open, endless. Clouds drift slowly past. Some form shapes. You recognize an animal, a face, a memory. Others pass without meaning. You do not need to chase them. You do not need to stop them. You simply watch as they move, carried by the wind. This is how thoughts can be seen. They are weather, not the sky itself. When anxiety grips us, thoughts seem more powerful than they are. They arrive with urgency. Something is wrong. You are not safe. You cannot rest. If we believe them completely, they tighten around us like chains. But when we remember that they are only passing clouds, they lose their power. We can say to ourselves, "This is only a thought." There was once a man who feared traveling. Each time he planned a journey, his mind filled with images of danger, storms, accidents, disasters. The pictures were so vivid that he avoided leaving home altogether. One day, a teacher asked him, "When you see a cloud shaped like a dragon, do you run from the sky?" The man laughed and said, "No." The teacher replied, "Then why run from the shapes of your own mind? Slowly, he learned to see his anxious thoughts in the same way as shapes, not truths. This practice does not silence the mind. The clouds still come, but it changes our relationship with them. Instead of clinging to every thought or running from it, we watch. We let them drift. We begin to see that beneath them, the sky of awareness remains clear and vast. At night, when anxious thoughts crowd in, try to imagine them as passing weather. Some may be dark with thunder, others light and fleeting, but none stay forever. The storm always moves on, and the sky remains. The bamboo grove offers its own lesson. When the wind blows, the tall stalks bend and sway. They creak and whisper, but they do not break. In the same way, when anxious thoughts pass through, we may bend beneath them, but we need not shatter. We can sway, we can wait, and soon the wind will quiet. Anxiety thrives when we mistake thoughts for reality. Peace arises when we see them as clouds. The mind will always create its weather, but awareness is the open sky, and the sky is never harmed by the passing storm. There was once a woman named Marlene who lived with a mind that rarely rested. From morning until night, thoughts circled her like a flock of restless birds. They whispered fears about her health, about her children, about the mistakes long past and troubles not yet come. At night, when the house grew quiet, her thoughts only grew louder. Sleep became a distant friend. For years, Marlene fought against these thoughts. She tried to silence them by distraction, by keeping herself busy, by drowning them in noise. But no matter how hard she resisted, the thoughts returned. They returned stronger, sharper, demanding her attention. Her struggle became the very soil in which her anxiety grew. One evening, weary from another restless day, Marlene met with a teacher. She poured out her troubles, speaking of the endless thoughts that chased her, of the fear that followed her into every room. The teacher listened quietly, then said something simple. These are only thoughts. At first, Marlene did not understand. Her thoughts felt too real, too heavy to dismiss. But the teacher explained a thought is like a passing sound, like the chirp of a bird, like the rustle of leaves. You hear it, and then it is gone. You do not need to cling to it. You do not need to push it away. You simply notice and let it pass. The next night, when her mind filled with anxious stories, Marlene remembered those words. She whispered to herself, "This is only a thought." At first, nothing changed. The thoughts still came loud and insistent. But with each reminder, she began to feel a small shift. Instead of drowning in her thoughts, she began to float above them like a bird rising from the trees. Over time, Marlene practiced this again and again. Each time anxiety appeared, she placed a gentle label upon it. This is only a thought. Slowly, the thoughts lost some of their power. They still came, but she no longer believed every story they told. She learned that her thoughts were weather, not the sky. One night, as she sat quietly with her worries, she pictured herself standing in that temple courtyard beneath the moon. She saw the clouds drift across the sky, each one a thought, each one moving on. She realized that she was not the clouds. She was the sky itself, vast, open, untroubled by their passing. Marlene did not become free of thoughts. No one does. But she became free of the chains that bound her to them. She learned to watch without being pulled to care, without being consumed. And in that freedom, she found rest she had not known for years. Her story is a reminder for us all. Thoughts will come. They will whisper their stories, paint their pictures, stir their storms. But they are not who we are. They are visitors, and we can learn like Marlene to greet them gently, to let them pass, and to remain as the clear sky beneath. Marlene's discovery points us to a deeper truth that the Buddha often taught: we are not our thoughts. We are the awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear like clouds drifting across the sky. Imagine again the wide heavens at dusk. The horizon stretches without end. Clouds gather some light and feathery others dark with rain. They move, they shift, they dissolve. Yet above them, the sky remains open, untouched, unbroken. This is what awareness is like: vast, steady present. Thoughts and feelings, no matter how heavy, cannot stain it. When anxiety rises, it feels as if it covers everything. The storm clouds seem endless, blocking out the light. But just as no storm lasts forever, no anxious thought can remain. Behind it all, awareness waits like a boundless sky that never changes. There was once a farmer who worried constantly about his crops. Each day, he looked to the sky, fearing drought, fearing flood, fearing too much sun, fearing too little. His life became a chain of anxious forecasts. One day, a monk told him, "The sky you watch is not only weather. Behind the clouds, behind the storms, there is always the open sky. Learn to rest in that, and the storms will trouble you less." We too can learn this. When a thought comes, sharp, frightening, insistent, we can remind ourselves, this is only a cloud. The thought may linger, it may even bring rain, but it will move on. It cannot erase the sky of awareness that holds it. Picture yourself on a mountain path at dawn. Mist clings to the valleys, thick and obscuring. Yet as the sun rises, the mist begins to lift. The mountain peaks emerge strong and steady, reminding you they were always there. In the same way, when awareness shines through, the mist of anxiety begins to part, revealing the steady ground of your true nature. The practice is simple, though not always easy. Each time a thought arises, notice it. Name it gently, thinking, worrying, remembering. Then let it drift. Return to the awareness that sees. The more you practice, the more familiar the open sky becomes. And when the storm clouds of anxiety gather again, as they surely will, you will know that they are only passing weather. You will remember that you are not the storm. You are the sky itself, vast enough to hold every cloud, yet never harmed by them. To see thoughts as passing clouds is powerful, but it is not always enough. The storms of anxiety can still feel overwhelming, even when we know they are not permanent. This is why the Buddha also taught compassion, especially compassion for ourselves. So often when anxiety arises, we meet it with judgment. We scold ourselves for being weak. We compare ourselves to others and believe we are failing. We add shame to fear, and in doing so, we deepen our suffering. But what if instead we met our anxiety with kindness? There was once a woman named Ruth. Each night she lay awake, her heart racing, her mind restless. She would whisper to herself, "Why can't I be calm? What's wrong with me?" These words only tightened her fear. One evening, she learned a different practice. As her chest grew tight, she placed her hand gently over her heart and whispered, "May I be safe. May I find peace. May I rest." At first, it felt awkward, even foolish, but slowly she noticed a change. The hand on her chest was a reminder that she was not alone. Her words were a thread of kindness woven into the fabric of fear. She began to see that her anxiety was not a flaw to fight, but a wound to tend. Compassion softens the sharp edges of suffering. It does not erase anxiety, but it changes the way we hold it. Imagine carrying a heavy stone your bare hands. The weight cuts into your skin. Now imagine wrapping that stone in soft cloth. The weight is still there, but it no longer wounds. Compassion is that cloth. You can practice this wherever you are. When fear rises, pause. Place your hand gently over your heart or your cheek. Whisper words of care as you would to a dear friend. May I be calm. May I find ease. May I be at peace. These simple phrases begin to shift the mind from harshness to gentleness. Think of a small child waking in the night crying from a bad dream. You would not scold the child for being afraid. You would hold them, speak softly, remind them they are safe. In the same way, when anxiety awakens within us, we can meet it, not with anger, but with tenderness. We can become both the frightened child and the soothing parent held within the same heart. Ruth discovered that her anxiety did not vanish overnight, but each time she placed her hand upon her heart, each time she whispered words of kindness, the fear lost a little of its strength. Over time, compassion became her refuge. The Buddha taught that compassion is not weakness. It is strength, the strength to face what is difficult without turning away. And when we extend that compassion inward to our own suffering hearts, we begin to walk the path of healing. So tonight, as you rest, remember this: you deserve the same kindness you would offer to another. Place a hand on your heart, whisper gentle words, and let compassion be the lantern that lights your way through the dark. Compassion, once awakened, becomes a practice we can carry into every moment. It is not reserved for special places or times. It can be as close as your next breath, as near as your own beating heart. When anxiety rises, kindness can be the way we meet it. Ruth learned this slowly. Each night when her heart raced, she returned to her simple phrases: "May I be safe. May I be calm. May I find peace." She did not always believe the words yet. She spoke them gently, like planting seeds in the soil. Some nights, the seeds seemed not to grow, but over time she noticed small shoots of calm appearing where only fear had lived. Anxiety often arrives like an unexpected storm, sudden and forceful. To meet it with harshness is to add lightning to thunder. But to meet it with kindness is to open an umbrella, to offer shelter until the storm passes. The rain may still fall, but we no longer stand unprotected. Picture a quiet evening at home. Rain taps gently against the window. A small lamp casts a golden glow across the room. You hold a cup of tea in your hands, warm and fragrant. Outside, the storm runs its course. Inside, you are safe. Meeting anxiety with kindness is like creating that room within your own heart. The storm may rage beyond the walls, but within there is warmth, safety, and peace. The Buddha taught that kindness is not just an idea, it is a practice. It is something we can return to again and again, like drawing water from a well. The well does not run dry. Each time we lower the bucket, we raise what we need. In the same way, each time we choose kindness, we strengthen the habit of compassion until it becomes natural. There was once a man who feared speaking in front of others. Each time he stood before a group, his chest tightened, his voice faltered, his mind filled with panic. He scolded himself for being weak, telling himself to be stronger, braver, louder. But the harder he pushed, the worse his anxiety grew. One day, a teacher suggested, instead of fighting yourself, try saying, "It's all right to be afraid. May I be gentle with myself in this moment." At first, the man resisted. It felt strange to comfort himself when he wanted to appear strong. But as he practiced, something shifted. The fear still came, but it no longer crushed him. By meeting his anxiety with kindness, he created space for his voice to emerge. He discovered that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward with gentleness. Kindness is a medicine the heart does not reject. It soothes without side effects, heals without harm. When we meet anxiety with kindness, we do not erase it, but we change the relationship. Anxiety becomes less of a tyrant and more of a messenger, reminding us of the places within that need care. Tonight, as you hear these words, perhaps you notice your own worries stirring. Let them be here, then place them gently in the hands of kindness. Like setting down a heavy burden on soft ground, you may feel the weight lessen. For even in the midst of anxiety, kindness is always possible. Kindness softens the weight of anxiety, but the Buddha offered another teaching that reaches even deeper. It is the truth of non-self. This truth reminds us our thoughts and feelings, no matter how intense, do not define who we are. When anxiety rises, it often speaks with authority. It says, "You are broken, you are weak, you will always be this way." These words feel final, as if they were carved into the stone of our being. But they are not truth. They are passing experiences, like shadows that fall across a wall. They appear, they move, they fade. The wall itself remains unchanged. There was once a man named Walter. He carried anxiety for much of his life. Each time his heart raced or his mind filled with fear, he told himself, "This is who I am. I am an anxious man." The label became a cage, locking him inside the stories of his own mind. One day, a teacher invited Walter to sit quietly and notice his thoughts. As fear arose, the teacher asked him to repeat, "This is not me. This is not mine. This is not who I am." At first, Walter resisted. The fear felt so personal, so much a part of his identity. But as he practiced, he began to see that anxiety was not the whole of him. It was a visitor, not the owner of the house. Imagine sitting beside a river. Leaves float past. On the surface, some small, some large, some bright, some dark. If you mistake the leaves for yourself, you may fear their coming and going. But if you remember that you are not the leaves, you are the river itself, then their passing becomes natural. Thoughts and feelings are like those leaves. You are the awareness that holds them, not the leaves themselves. Walter discovered that his anxiety did not vanish. The thoughts still came, the fears still whispered, but he no longer called them me. He began to see them as events, not as identity. Slowly, the cage of his self-labeling dissolved. He found space within himself that anxiety could not touch. The Buddha's teaching of non-self is not meant to deny our humanity. It is meant to free us from the false belief that we are limited to our suffering. You are not your anxious thoughts. You are not your restless nights. You are not the fears that visit you. You are the awareness in which they come and go, vast enough to hold them, steady enough to outlast them. Tonight, as you listen, let these words rest gently in your mind. This is not me. This is not mine. This is not who I am. Repeat them softly as Walter did. Let them remind you that you are more than your anxiety. You are the clear sky, not the passing storm. Walter's discovery leads us deeper into the heart of the Buddha's wisdom. The teaching of non-self is not only a comfort, it is a liberation. It shows us that what we often cling to, our thoughts, our emotions, even our identities, are not solid possessions. They are conditions that arise and pass away. To mistake them for the self is to bind ourselves to suffering. To see through them is to open the door to freedom. The Buddha described this insight with simple words. This is not me. This is not mine. This is not who I am. When applied to each passing thought, each rising fear, the chains of anxiety begin to loosen. The storms of the mind no longer define the sky of awareness. Picture again the river you sat beside. The leaves drift by, carried by the current. You do not reach for them. You do not push them away. You watch as they appear float and disappear downstream. The river does not cling, does not resist. It simply flows. This is the way of awareness when it recognizes non-self. Anxiety whispers, you are your fear, you are your worry, you are this restless mind. But the truth is otherwise. You are the river, not the leaves. You are the vast sky, not the passing storm. There was once a young monk who feared failure. Each time he stumbled in his practice, he told himself, I am not good enough. I am weak. I am unworthy. His teacher guided him to sit with these words and to answer gently, this is not me. This is not mine. This is not who I am. At first the words felt like denial, but as the days passed, he began to sense a quiet spaciousness. The words of self-criticism still came, but they no longer pierced his heart. They became echoes in a vast hall fading into silence. Freedom does not mean the end of all difficulty. It means we are no longer trapped by the stories our mind tells. Non-self is the realization that we are more than the roles, labels, and emotions we carry. It is the recognition that awareness itself cannot be harmed by passing storms. Imagine standing beneath a sky filled with dark clouds. Lightning flashes, thunder rolls, rain pours. It seems the whole world is storm, but then you rise in an airplane above the clouds. Suddenly, there is only clear sky, golden sunlight, endless openness. The storm still exists, but it no longer defines your view. Self lifts us above the clouds of identity, showing us the unchanging expanse that holds it all. Anxiety loses its grip when we no longer take it personally. We stop saying, this is me, and instead say, this is just a passing condition. We create space for peace. The storm still comes, but we are no longer drowning in it. We stand as the sky itself, like vast and free. Tonight, let these words move gently through you. This is not me. This is not mine. This is not who I am. Let them be like a soft breeze through an open window, carrying away the dust of self-clinging. Rest in the awareness that is beyond anxiety, beyond fear, beyond every passing thought. Rest in the freedom of non-self. From the truth of non-self, the Buddha turned again to the truth of impermanence. These two are like twin wings of a bird carrying us toward freedom. To see that nothing we experience is truly ours is to recognize also that nothing remains the same. All things, whether joyful or painful, are born, they change, and they pass away. Anxiety often convinces us that our suffering is endless. A racing heart feels as if it will never calm. A restless mind seems like it will never sleep. But impermanence reminds us no storm lasts forever. The very nature of all things is change. There was a woman named Maya who struggled with sleepless nights. When darkness fell, her thoughts grew louder. Her fears multiplied, telling her that morning would never come. One night, her teacher asked her simply to notice, do your thoughts stay the same? From moment to moment, Maya began to watch. She saw how a fearful thought appeared, lingered, and then dissolved, replaced by another. She realized that even her anxiety was not one solid block. It was a stream, always shifting, always moving. This realization brought her a measure of peace. She understood that her anxiety did not define her because it could not remain. Each wave rose, peaked, and fell. Each thought passed like a cloud across the sky. Even her fear of permanence was itself impermanent. Imagine standing at the edge of the sea. Waves roll in, each one unique. Some small, some large, some gentle, some crashing. None remains. One arrives, breaks, and dissolves into the sand. Another follows, and another. In the same way, our emotions and thoughts arrive, crest, and fade. To believe they are permanent is to mistake the wave for the ocean. Impermanence can be frightening when we cling to what we love, yet it can also be a comfort when we face what we fear. Pain will change. Fear will change. Even anxiety will change. Nothing has the power to remain unchanged. The Buddha encouraged his followers to meditate on this truth, not to bring despair, but to bring relief. When we see that life is fluid, we stop trying to freeze it in place. We begin to flow with it instead of against it. This does not erase difficulty, but it makes difficulty bearable. Picture a candle burning in the night. Its flame flickers, never the same from one moment to the next, and yet it gives light all the same. Our lives are like that flame, changing, fragile, never fixed. To watch it with awareness is to learn peace. Maya still had anxious nights, but now when fear told her this will never end, she answered softly, "This too will pass." The words became a lantern in her darkness, reminding her of the law of impermanence. Slowly the nights grew lighter, for she no longer believed the lie of permanence. She rested instead in the truth of change. Impermanence teaches us that all things change, yet when anxiety comes, it can still feel endless. In those moments, it helps to see our thoughts and feelings as weather of the mind. Storms arise, skies darken, winds howl. But no storm can hold the sky forever. Imagine sitting in a temple at dawn. Outside clouds gather and the rain begins to fall. The roof echoes with the steady rhythm of water. For a while, it feels as if the rain will never stop. But slowly the storm weakens. The sound softens. The air clears. Morning light filters through, turning raindrops into jewels on every leaf. The storm has passed as all storms do. Anxiety is like this. When it is strong, it covers everything. It blinds us, convinces us it will remain. But if we sit with patience, we begin to notice its changes. The pounding heart slows. The tight chest softens. The thoughts that once roared like thunder begin to quiet. Even within the storm, there are moments of stillness. There was a young student who suffered from constant worry. Every mistake seemed like a disaster, every uncertain future like a looming shadow. His teacher told him, "Think of your mind as the sky and your fears as storms. Watch them arrive. Notice their clouds, their thunder, and then watch how they pass." At first, the student doubted. His storms felt too strong. But as he observed, he began to see the shifts, the clouds breaking, the winds dying, the sky clearing. Slowly, he trusted that no storm lasted forever. The Buddha spoke of this too. He reminded his followers that joy and sorrow gain, and loss, praise, and blame all are like weather. They come, they go. To cling to them or to push them away is to fight the wind itself. To observe them is to live in harmony with the changing sky. Picture yourself walking through a light rain without umbrella. At first, you resist wishing it would stop. Each drop feels like an intrusion. But then you relax your shoulders, lift your face, and let the rain fall. It is not permanent. It is not personal. It is simply rain. In that moment, resistance dissolves and peace arises. Anxiety lessens when we remember that it, too, is weather. It may come suddenly, it may linger longer than we wish, but it will not stay. The sky of awareness is vast enough to hold it, patient enough to wait for its passing. In the temple courtyard, a bell tolls through the thinning rain. Its sound is clear, gentle, steady. The storm fades, but the bell remains. In the same way, awareness endures even as the storms of the mind dissolve. Tonight, if your thoughts feel like heavy weather, remind yourself, this too will pass. Let the storm come, let it go, and rest in the sky that holds it all. To see the mind as weather is to glimpse freedom. Yet the Buddha went further. He taught the practice of non-attachment, releasing our need to grasp or to control. This is not indifference, it is the gentle art of holding life with open hands. When we cling, we suffer. We clutch at the pleasant fearing it will vanish. We push against the unpleasant hoping it will disappear. But both acts bind us more tightly. The Buddha's wisdom is simple. Freedom comes not from forcing life to obey us, but from learning to rest in its flow. Consider David, an architect who built great buildings, but could not let go of his designs. Each project consumed him. When walls cracked or roofs leaked, he carried the weight as if the failures were carved into his very being. As he aged, his health declined and he could no longer work with the same energy. Anxiety grew in him, whispering, "Without my buildings, I am nothing." One day, walking in a garden, David watched petals fall from a flower. The bloom had been perfect days before, but now the petals loosened, drifting softly to the earth. Yet the flower did not resist. It released its beauty into the wind, trusting the cycle of life. In that moment, David understood. His buildings, his work, even his very body, these too must change. To cling was to suffer. To release was to be free. Non-attachment does not mean we stop caring. It means we care without chains. We love without grasping. We work without making our success or failure the measure of our worth. It's like holding a bird in your palm. Squeeze too tightly and you harm it. Hold too loosely and it may fly away. Hold with balance, gentle, steady, and both you and the bird can breathe. The Buddha compared attachment to carrying a raft across a river. Once you have crossed to the other shore, you do not continue to drag the raft on your back. It has served its purpose. Non-attachment is knowing when to let go, when to set down what is no longer needed. Imagine standing beneath a tree in late spring. The breeze rises and blossoms fall all around you. You could try to catch each one, desperate to preserve its beauty. But in doing so, you would miss the wonder of their falling. To watch them drift, to let them go, is to see their beauty fully. David's anxiety did not vanish overnight, but as he practiced letting go, he found peace even in imperfection. His buildings were no longer prisons for his identity, but gifts to the world. He began to see himself not as the architect of stone, but as the architect of a freer heart. When we practice non-attachment, we discover that freedom is not in controlling life, but in opening to it. We learn that peace does not come from holding tighter, but from releasing lightly, and in that release we step into the spaciousness of true freedom. The Buddha often spoke of balance. He called it the middle way, a path between extremes. For when we live at the edges, clinging to one side or rejecting the other, suffering grows. But in balance, there is calm. In balance, there is freedom. Helen was a woman who valued independence. She worked hard, carried her own burdens, and rarely asked for help. Yet beneath her strength anxiety stirred. She feared that needing others would make her weak, while carrying everything alone left her exhausted. She lived swinging between two extremes, isolation and fear of dependence. Her teacher reminded her of the Buddha's story. Before his awakening, the Buddha lived first in luxury, surrounded by every comfort. Yet he found no peace. Later, he practiced severe austerities, denying his body food and rest. Still, he found no peace. It was only when he discovered the middle way, neither indulgence nor denial, that he found the path to awakening. Helen listened. She began to see that independence need not mean isolation, and asking for help need not mean weakness. She practiced balance. Some days she leaned on others. Other days she stood firmly on her own. Slowly her anxiety softened. She realized she was not trapped between extremes. She was walking a middle path. The middle way is not only about lifestyle, it is a way of meeting the mind. When anxiety comes, one extreme is to fight it, fiercely trying to banish it. The other is to surrender completely, believing it controls us. Both extremes bring suffering. The middle way invites us to acknowledge anxiety without clinging to it, to sit with it without being swallowed by it. Picture a tightrope stretched between two poles. To lean too far in either direction is to fall, but when balance is found, each step is steady, each movement graceful. The rope is narrow, yet it can be walked with care. Life is like that rope. Balance is possible even in the midst of uncertainty. There was once a lute player who tightened his strings too much. The instrument snapped and could not play. Then he loosened them too much, and the sound was dull and lifeless. Only when the strings were tuned to the middle did the music flow. The Buddha used this story to remind us the right path is not in extremes, but in harmony. Helen's journey is our own. We too may cling to strength or collapse into helplessness. We too may fight anxiety or drown in it. But the middle way shows us another path to walk gently between, to hold steady, to live in balance. As you rest tonight, consider where you lean too far. Do you grip too tightly? Do you resist too strongly? Imagine finding the center, the quiet place between. There, the storms of life may still blow, but you will sway without breaking. You will walk with the steady grace of the middle way. The Buddha also spoke of interbeing, the truth that all things are connected. Nothing exists alone. Each breath we take is shared with the trees, the rivers, the sky. Each meal we eat is the gift of sun, soil, and rain. To forget this is to feel isolated. To remember it is to find belonging. Robert was a man who often felt alone. Anxiety told him he was separate, cut off from others. He would sit in the park, surrounded by people, yet feel as if he were invisible. One day, a teacher encouraged him to look more closely. "See the tree beside you," the teacher said. "Its leaves give you the air you breathe. Its roots hold the soil that feeds your food. Even in silence, it is speaking to you." Robert began to notice the birdsong in the branches, the laughter of children nearby, the warmth of sunlight on his face. All of it touched him. Slowly, the walls of his loneliness began to soften. He realized he was not separate. He was part of the web of life. Interbeing means that when you drink a cup of tea, you are also drinking the clouds and the rain that nourished the leaves. When you walk on the earth, you are walking on the gifts of countless lives before you. When you breathe with the world. Anxiety often blinds us to this truth. It tells us we are alone in our fear, but awareness reveals the deeper reality: we are never truly alone. Picture a spider's web glistening with dew. Each strand touches the others. A movement at one end ripples through the whole. Life is like that web. Your joy touches others. Your suffering is shared. Nothing stands apart. The Buddha taught that to see interbeing is to awaken compassion. When we know that others suffer, as we do our hearts open, when we know that our lives are supported by countless unseen hands, gratitude blossoms. Anxiety begins to loosen, for we no longer carry the weight of life alone. Robert discovered this in the park. Each time he sat beneath the trees, he felt less like a solitary man and like a thread in a vast tapestry. His fear did not vanish completely, but it lost its sharpness. Belonging replaced isolation. Connection replaced despair. Tonight, if you feel alone, remember the truth of interbeing. Feel the ground beneath you, the gift of earth. Hear the air move through your lungs, the gift of trees. Sense the life around you, the gift of countless beings. You are woven into this web, supported, connected, embraced. From the truth of interbeing flows the practice of the 4 divine abodes: loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. The Buddha called these the natural homes of the awakened heart. When we dwell in them, anxiety begins to soften like ice melting in the sun. The first abode is loving kindness, the wish that all beings be well. Is like a gentle flame that warms without burning. When anxiety makes us turn inward, loving kindness helps us to turn outward, to remember that our hearts are wide enough to hold care for ourselves and others. A simple phrase may begin it: may I be safe. May you be safe. May all beings be safe. The second is compassion, the tender response to suffering. Compassion says, I see your pain and I wish relief for you. When we extend compassion to ourselves, our anxiety becomes less of a battle and more of a wound we gently tend. Compassion wraps our fear in soft cloth so the weight no longer cuts so deeply. The third abode is joy. This is not the fleeting joy of excitement, but the quiet joy of being alive. It is found in small things: the sound of rain, the warmth of tea, the laughter of a child. Anxiety tells us to focus only on what might go wrong. Joy reminds us of what is already right. It opens the window to fresh air, letting light stream into a crowded room. The fourth abode is equanimity, a calm balance of mind. It is the steady mountain that does not tremble with each passing storm. Equanimity does not mean indifference. It means meeting both joy and sorrow with the same gentle gaze, knowing that both are part of life's flow. When equanimity grows, anxiety loses its grip, for we no longer cling to control. Imagine a lotus pond at dawn. The water is still reflecting the soft light of the rising sun. Around the pond bloom flowers, each one representing a divine abode. Their petals open slowly, releasing fragrance into the air. The pond does not choose which flower to keep, which to discard. It holds them all. So too does the awakened heart. There was once a young novice who feared the future. Each time he thought of what might come, his chest tightened. His teacher guided him to practice the divine abodes. First, he whispered loving kindness for himself, then compassion for others, then joy for small blessings, finally equanimity for the changes he could not control. Over time, his fear softened. The 4 abodes became his refuge. These abodes are not far from us. They are seeds already planted in the heart. Each time we practice, we water them. Each time we remember, they grow. And as they grow, they create a home where anxiety cannot rule, a home where peace dwells naturally. Tonight, let yourself rest in these 4 gentle rooms. Whisper kindness, offer compassion, welcome joy, and rest in equanimity. In doing so, you return home to the awakened heart. The Buddha knew that the storms of life can feel overwhelming. That is why he spoke of refuge, a safe harbor where the heart can rest. To take refuge is not to escape the world, but to remember that we are supported. It is like stepping into a shelter while the rain falls, knowing we are not alone. There are 3 refuges: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha is the awakened one, showing us the possibility of freedom. The Dharma is the teaching, the timeless truth that points the way. The Sangha is the community of seekers walking the path together. When we take refuge in these, we find strength greater than our own. Claire was a woman who lived with deep anxiety. Each time her fear rose, she felt as if she were drowning. One evening, as her mind raced, she remembered her teacher's words, "When fear is strong, whisper your refuge." So she placed her hands together and whispered, "I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha." The words were quiet, but they steadied her. They reminded her that she was not lost, not without guidance, not alone. Refuge does not mean we never feel fear again. It means that when fear comes, we have a lantern to light the path. Like a traveler on a dark road, we may still stumble, but the light keeps us moving forward. Picture a temple during a heavy storm. Rain lashes the roof, wind howls at the doors. Inside, candles flicker but remain steady. The walls shelter those within, not by stopping the storm, but by holding space through it. Refuge is like those walls. Anxiety may roar outside, but within there is calm. Sometimes our refuge is as simple as a phrase. Sometimes it is the presence of a friend, or the memory of the Buddha's teachings, or the quiet strength of a community that practices together. Each reminds us that we do not carry our burdens alone. The Buddha taught that refuge is not outside of us alone, it also lives within. Each of us carries a spark of awakening, a seed of wisdom, a heart capable of compassion. To take refuge is to remember that this seed is real and that it can grow. Claire found peace in her simple prayer. Each time anxiety rose, she whispered her refuge. The storm still came, but she no longer drowned in it. She floated, carried by the strength of something greater than fear. Tonight, if anxiety visits you, try whispering words of refuge. They need not be elaborate. Even a simple phrase spoken softly can remind you that you are held guided and supported. In refuge, we find the courage to endure and the peace to rest. All along this path, we have walked together through silence that grew heavy, through thoughts that rose like storms, through teachings of impermanence, compassion, and freedom. Each step has shown us that anxiety is not an enemy but a teacher. It is the doorway that has led us back to ourselves. Now, as we come to the close, let us rest in the awareness that has always been here. Awareness is the quiet ground beneath all passing experiences. Like it is the sky that holds every cloud, the river that carries every leaf, the earth that supports every step. Awareness does not cling and does not resist. It simply is. Imagine sitting beside a still lake under the moonlight. The surface of the water reflects the stars, each ripple settling into calm. The trees stand in silence, their branches swaying gently with the night air. No effort is required. The lake does not strive to be still. It rests in its own nature. Awareness is like that lake. When we allow it, the mind settles and peace reveals itself. Anxiety may return as storms always do, But now you know that storms pass. You know that you are not the storm, but the sky that contains it. You know that thoughts are clouds, impermanent and shifting. You know that kindness can soften fear, that non-self can loosen chains, that interbeing can remind you of your place in the web of life. Picture yourself walking through the temple courtyard one last time. The lanterns glow softly, the night air is cool, carrying the faint scent of jasmine. You hear the sound of a distant bell, steady and calm. Ahead, the plain wooden door stands once more. This time you open it without hesitation. Inside is a room of gentle light where you can rest. Anxiety may knock again, but you know now that the door leads not to fear, but to stillness. The Buddha's teachings are not far from us. They live in each moment we remember to breathe, to notice, to let go. They live in every act of compassion, every whisper of kindness, every pause of awareness. They remind us that peace is not something we must chase. It is here within us waiting. As this story closes, let the words settle gently in your heart. May you rest in the vastness of awareness. May you feel the freedom of letting go. May you know the warmth of compassion, the steadiness of equanimity, the belonging of interbeing. Tonight may you sleep in peace. Tomorrow may you walk in kindness. And always may you remember the storms of the mind are temporary, but the sky of awareness is eternal.